Awesome. Thank you, Carl. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Ito. I'm the Executive Director of the Osteopathic Medical Board. I'm very excited today to do this presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to use the raise hand function on Zoom. I'll answer questions as we go. I'll also answer questions at the end. And then if you're more comfortable asking questions offline, my direct email will be at the end of this presentation as well. So just to give a little background about myself, just on a personal note, I was born and raised in Sacramento, California. I have three beautiful kids. Their names are Isaiah, Kemi, and Elsie. And if you have kids, you know that it's hard to get some words in sometimes. So this is my chance, and so bear with me as we go. So other than that, on a personal note, other than being the executive director, I'm a high school basketball coach. I love building positive relationships, bringing a positive culture to our youth, and instilling principles in them that they can use throughout their life. So that's kind of my passion, other than being the executive director. And on a positive note, yesterday I just wanted to announce I got my first COVID vaccine shot, so I'm excited about that. So it looks like things are moving on, so I'm excited. All right, so as for the board, I was appointed to this position as of executive director on January 31st, 2019. My vision for the board is to continue to fulfill our mission of protecting the public by ensuring that only qualified osteopathic physicians and surgeons are licensed by the board here in California. Previous to my appointment as the executive director of the board, I worked in various capacities for the Department of Consumer Affairs, also known as DCA. The Osteopathic Medical Board is one of approximately 40 boards and bureaus under the umbrella of DCA. I was the Osteopathic Medical Board's budget manager for the Department of Consumer Affairs for the 5 years previous to my appointment. I worked with the previous executive director on everything budget related, which is, among other things, legislation, regulations, drafting budget change proposals to adjust to our budget, and anything else budget related. I kind of worked with the previous executive director. So that's my background here with the board. The things I'm going to go over today, I already did the introduction. I'll go over our new board members. I'll go over our budget. I'll go over the CME post-renewal audit, which is a regulation we have coming up. I think it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be a big change for us. I'll go over our licensee population, licensing as a whole, our staffing, and some COVID-19 updates that I'm going to give you. So that's going to be the crux of my presentation today. And so as we go through here, we have new board members. We had Dr. Zamudo was the board's president for many, many years. He termed out. We miss Dr. Zamudo, but at the same time, we're excited about our new board officers. Our new board president is Dr. Cyrus Bahari. He was appointed back in October of 2015 by the governor. Dr. Bahari has been doing great. I've been working with him, and I'm excited about the change. Our new vice president is Dr. Elizabeth Jensen. She is also a DO. She was appointed back in October as well by the governor, and we're excited about that. And last but not least, we have Andrew Moreno as our secretary/treasurer. He was appointed to the board back in 2017 by the governor, and I'm excited about our new board officers. They were appointed back in January, and I'm looking forward to continue to work with them closely to align our mission of protecting the public with the board. All right, so the board's budget. This is kind of in my wheelhouse here. This is for a lot of boards, this is one of the more important things is the budget, to ensure that we have the appropriation, that we're spending appropriately, so we can do everything we can to protect the public by regulating our osteopathic physicians and surgeons. I'll try not to bore you to death, but the way that the state and the department does does budget. We do incremental budgeting. So in layman's terms, we use the budget from last year and we make incremental changes, such as budget change proposals, executive orders, et cetera, to the previous year's budget to make the next year's budget. So we don't start at zero and kind of build from there. We use what we had last year, and then we make changes as necessary. So our budget for 2021 is $3.025 million based on our spending. And I've tried to be as conservative as possible, which is important for unforeseen expenses that come through. Our projected expenditures right now are $2.4 million, which projects a savings of about $600,000. And that's a very healthy savings, something we're proud of, and something that we're going to try to continue to do just to make sure that we always have a sufficient budget to operate. Our projected revenue for 2021 is $2.853 million. So we are structurally balanced, meaning that our revenue and expenditures are somewhat in line. As you can see, our projected expenditures, I mentioned, were $2.4 million, and our revenue is 2.8. So I'm projecting that we bring about $400,000 more in than we're spending. So with that said, our months in reserve at the end of 2021 are projected to be 16.1 months. In layman's terms, what the months in reserve is if we stop bringing in money today, our months in reserve are how many months that we could operate under our current spending prior to becoming insolvent. So I know these are a bunch of numbers I threw at you, but I really wanted to show you this because at the end of the day, with our current months in reserve and the fact that we're bringing in more than we're spending, this ensures that the board will not have to pursue a fee increase of any sort for the foreseen future. So that's something I'm excited about. I don't want to increase fees, and this is kind of more proof that that won't have to happen. All right, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is our CME post-renewal audit regulation. So this regulation and this audit will significantly change the renewal process for the OMBC. So currently, we audit all CMEs at the time of renewal. So when you send in your renewal, we have to not only go through and make sure it's filled out correctly, we actually audit every single licensee's CMEs at the time of renewal, which is a large workload. We're actually the only board within our department that does that. Every other board has a self-certification at the time of renewal, and then they have a post-renewal audit where they audit a percentage of the CMEs that were sent in. So I'm hoping, and I actually am very optimistic that with this new post-renewal audit, our workload will go down only because we won't be auditing as many CMEs. And at the end of the day, it's going to reduce barriers for licensure, because right now you have to mail in, or you could pay online for your renewal, but it can't actually be renewed until we verify those CMEs and move forward from there. So my vision is when you submit your renewal, we're going to have an online feature for it where you don't have to send in your CMEs at the time of renewal. There's going to be a self-certification of those CMEs at the time of renewal. And then you're going to be able to almost instantaneously renew your license. And I think that from a customer service standpoint is a big deal, because right now we tell licensees that our process is 15 business days. I know doctors are busy, and if you send it in late, then it's a struggle. We get phone calls and we have to kind of figure out how we're going to renew it before your expiration date. Now with this new process, you're going to be able to go online, use all the functionality of our new computer system, and renew almost instantaneously. So you can almost go on the last day, renew it, and then you can get your license and not have an interruption to your work. So one other part of the CME regulation language that we're putting forward is the CME reporting period is going to be adjusted, because currently there is some confusion with the CME reporting period, because right now our law and our regulations state that the CME reporting period is the 2 calendar years prior to your expiration date. meaning that if you were to expire in June, that your CME reporting period would be those 2 years. Like if you expired in June 2021, your CME reporting period would be the calendar years for 2019 and 2020. And then you couldn't technically get CMEs from January 2021 through June, which I think is confusing. And there's been a lot of complaints and issues brought up because of that. So I'm working to change that CME reporting period so it's the 2 years immediately preceding your expiration date. So I think that's clearer. I think it'll cause less confusion, be more transparent for the board. So that's another part that is in the in that CME regulation language. And the last thing that's going to be in there as well is there's going to be a citation and fine aspect of the for the CME. So right now, there doesn't need to be a citation and fine because if you don't have your CMEs currently, you just won't be renewed until you get them. So, but with the post-renewal audit, what we're going to do is you'll be able to renew, self-certify at the time of renewal, and then at a later point, you may be randomly audited. And if you're not able to verify to us that you've completed your CMEs that you certified on your renewal, there is a cite and fine aspect that we may pursue. It's something that we haven't fully fleshed out, but that's going to be a part of it as well. So, so I'm excited about this new process. I think from the board side, it's going to reduce some workload, which will enable us to lessen the processing times. And I think from a doctor's perspective, I think being able to go on there, renew online, self-certify your CMEs and automatically get renewed, I think that's going to be a big deal for doctors and something I'm excited about. Oh, and one last thing on the regulations. So they're currently in process for. So what regulations are regulations. The purpose of a regulation is to make specific the law. So every time I want to change the language for our regulations, I have to bring it back to the board for a full vote, which I had to do a few times. But I think we are now ready to submit this regulation package, which I'll be doing. I'll be submitting it to the Office of Administrative Law. And my anticipation is that this regulation will be in effect by the end of the year. It's kind of my timeline I'm hoping for. And I'm planning on doing a large outreach effort, which I will be working with OPSC, our social media, our website, and our listserv and our mailing list to kind of get this outreach out there just to make sure that there's no confusion during this change. All right, so the next thing is our licensing population. So I just put this number up here just to show everyone that we are a growing profession. It's kind of a big deal for us. It looks like every 3 years we grow by a few thousand licensees. I think this is a big deal. I know, you know, I always tell people that the DO profession is the fastest, if not one of the fastest medical professions in terms of growing in the nation, and this is just further proof of it. And with this said, you know, we're getting more applications and there's more renewals and more work on the back end for us, and it's something that I'm evaluating to determine if more staff is needed at a later point. Okay, so licensing statistics for 1920. So this is from last fiscal year. I'll have new numbers once this fiscal year is over, but we received 983 applications for licensure, and we issued 997. So, so the reason that there's more issued than applications came in is because some of these applications were received during the previous fiscal year, but they were approved in this fiscal year. But having 1,000 applications a year is kind of a big deal. It shows we're growing, and it's I don't have the number from 4 or 5 years ago, but it's substantially higher how many applications we get a year now. So in 1920, we received 641 PTL applications, and we issued 232. Now, the reason why such a low number was issued before the end of the fiscal year, which was June 30th of 2020, because we were waiting for a regulation package to go through for our postgraduate training license that authorized the board to actually collect the fee. So if you look at the numbers now, but pretty much all of our applications have been approved. It just took us a little bit of time to get up and running because we were getting those applications back in January, but we didn't have the authorization to actually approve them until about March. So we kind of were having to play catch up. But now we're caught up on those. I'm excited. I actually think I don't have the numbers in here, but I can tell you in the calendar year for 2020 that we received close to 1,000 PTL applications. So they were kind of in line with our how many applications for the full unrestricted license that we get. And then in 1920, we renewed 4,456 licenses. So this is just a big number for the board. We're not a big board compared to like the medical board who has hundreds of staff members. I have authorized 13.4 staff, and they're hard at work. And these numbers kind of justify the need potentially for for more staff in the future, depending on how our processing times go. All right, so staffing. So the board, we have one vacant position. It's an office technician position that processes the DO applications. Although we have a vacant position that we're trying to fill, I've also, in the meantime, to ensure that our processing times don't get backlogged too much, I have a memorandum of understanding with a different board within our department, and I'm borrowing a staff to work on that workload in lieu of actually hiring this position. And one thing I'm doing for staffing is I have I'm working with my departments. It's called the Organizational Improvement Office, and they go through and they kind of map all of our roles in the office because I want to see if we can create some efficiencies with my existing staff and reduce our processing times. But if that doesn't occur, what I'm going to do is submit a budget change proposal for additional positions just to make sure that our processing times are consistent with protecting the public and reducing barriers for licensure. All right, so for COVID-19, I want to give you an update on what we're doing in the back office for COVID-19. In conjunction with our department, the board, we put together a resiliency map and reopening plan from when we had to close down in March. So we have specific protocols we need to follow. And I'll go over a few of them here. We're teleworking now. I have about somewhere between 25 to 50% of my staff in the office at any given time to ensure social distancing guidelines. We stay 6 feet apart and make sure there's not too many people in the office, consistent with the CDC guidelines. I have rotational work schedules. So I have staff that are always available, but they're not always in the office at one time. And I have staggered work shift as well. So I don't have a lot of staff working 8 to 5. A lot of them are working staggered shifts to ensure that we are following the COVID protocols. Now these protocols are constantly evolving to balance the protecting the public while meeting operational needs. And it's something I'm continuously having to change. It's a fluid situation because at the end of the day, my job is to protect the public. And by doing that, I need to make sure that operational needs are met within the office. All right, so the last thing is COVID-19 vaccines. So we've been getting some calls about the COVID-19 vaccines, and we've been directing folks to the CDPH. Like most of the questions are when folks can get vaccinated. So I direct folks to the CDPH website. And one other thing is licensees must adhere to the vaccine requirements, and failure to do so may subject them to discipline. So I've had doctors call in, but at the end of the day, the board cannot give legal advice. We defer folks to CDPH to kind of get those answers to us. One thing we do is we constantly update our website on any information regarding COVID-19. Our website is www.ombc.ca.gov. And any new information that we get, we also send out to our listserv, which you can sign up for on our website as well to get any information that we want sent out to the public. We'll send out to all our licensees' email addresses on the in the system, which by the way, not all licensees have their email in there, as it's not a required field within Breeze. So when you renew your license, or you can go on there and check if your email is not in the system, it'd be awesome to have it in there so we can keep you notified of any upcoming information that we want you to be aware of, because we do update our website fairly frequently. And with that said, here's our contact information. Our website is www.ombc.ca.gov. Our general email inbox is osteopathic@dca.ca.gov. And I also have my direct email here. It's mark.ito, mark.ito@dca, D as in dog, C as in cat, A.ca.gov. That's my direct email here at the office. I know there's been some issues with getting through on the front phones, which this is an issue that I'm trying to alleviate and fix. But if you're not unable to get through on the front phones, please note down my direct email. I'd be free. I'm happy to get your emails and respond accordingly, because I think a big deal for the board is being available to the public, to its stakeholders, and to its licensees and applicants. So if you're having any issues getting through the board, please send me a direct email and I'll take care of it. And with that said, if anyone has any questions, I'll take them at this time.